Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Science of Fitness podcast. And today I'm sitting here with my business partner, co-director, co-owner, co-sufferer, Joey Agresta. How are you, Joey?
How are you, brother? Feeling good.
Mate, 14th of Jan, 7 days away. 14th of Feb, 7 days away, we celebrate 10 years of Science of Fitness. Pretty big deal.
Mate, it's crazy. The photos that just pop up on Facebook and the memories. So much to talk about. But I get really excited about seeing all photos.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And I mean, we can waffle about the feeling, when did 10 years happen and all that sort of stuff. But for the sake of today's episode, we've taken the time. We've pulled out 10 lessons that we've probably together learned over 10 years. And we're going to pretty much base this episode on that. And so we're going to probably spend about 5 minutes discussing each lesson. No more than that. I'm going to set the clock and go, and then we'll see how this one goes. All right, so let's just get straight into it. Clock starts. Lesson number 1: community and people are the backbone of a service-based business.
True.
Yeah. From your side, what builds a community?
Time. Authenticity, genuinely caring, which is, part and parcel with that. And I think more than anything, the founder has to be integrated as opposed to an owner who might just buy the thing. So for example, if we talk about early days boot camp, I was doing the sessions, you were doing the sessions, Rory was doing the sessions, and not just taking the class, we would jump in and do the thing. And that creates a tighter bond, especially in fitness, because people can relate to you. You can go through suffering together. There's that shared experience, which is crucial. We weren't just there, showing up and saying, all right, guys, see you later.
Yeah.
The shared experience is what, in my opinion, builds community.
Absolutely. It's a really funny one because I sort of catch myself every now and again, and I wish I joined in on more classes and more sessions. And there's something so special about it. And any gym, any fitness brand, whether the owner joins in or the trainer joins in or not, everyone that is suffering together, for lack of a better term, get closer. You look at sports teams, when you do that really hard preseason session, preseason camp, preseason whatever, you're much closer with each other when you do that than, if you do it on your own. It is in its own unique way, really does build that. Where do fitness businesses or service-based businesses in general go wrong in an attempt to build community?
Rushing it, but I want to put a little asterisk next to rushing it. And I mean that by, if you invite 100 people and you just look through your contact list of people you've met once or twice and invite them down, you can have a really busy session. But how many people stay for coffee after? How many people go get breakfast? How many people come back the next week? And I think that's the true marker of community versus having a busy session. So for me, I always think of fitness, especially group fitness gyms, as let's go get coffee after, and that's where it happens. That's where the magic is. So I think a lot of people go wrong by trying to fill the session, which, don't get me wrong,
It's a start.
It's a start,
It's where it
and
begins.
it pays the bills, whether it's free or not. But the retention is what drives the community, the community is what, creates the retention.
Yeah.
And in order to create the community, you need to give people a reason to come back.
Yeah.
And most of the time, that's through friendship.
Friendship, quality of service, caring.
Yep.
Yeah, all those important little things. I think the biggest thing for us, and having watched it happen in Burley, is exactly that. We purchased a pre-existing business with a client list, and we've gone in and realized there was none of that. There was a class and sweaty and members, but there wasn't. Where are we going for coffee? Like, we're going to the same coffee shop. We're going to the same beach. Like, we're actually connecting outside of that. The exercise, the fitness, the program brings us together. But then, it's all that other stuff, as you're saying. So what have you seen in that Burley experience that has really worked, and how's that come to fruition?
It's been really interesting doing it a second time over. You start to notice a few people who have similar personalities to the first time. You can probably think of a few connectors who we had in Milton who are really good at tying people together. They were always there. They always could link up people who weren't friends, and they are essentially the backbone of that community. I'm starting to see a few more of them pop into the gym, and it's kind of like their value is more than just the money they pay each week, because they link everyone together. And if I think back to early Milton days at 5 a.m., we just happened to have 25 of them in the 5 a.m. class. So naturally we grew really fast.
Yeah, and so it happened.
Yeah. So that's what I'm starting to see more of.
Yeah, cool. It's very interesting. Rightio. Lesson number 2. Being a boss, being a manager, being in charge, being a director, and saying the hard things, giving the bad news is much more valuable than being a boss that has a good vibe and a fun place.
Agreed. I would say this is not my strong point. It's a work in progress. I definitely think the boss needs to be clearer and be more deliberate with what they say and set the expectation, and not just be a vibe. They have to be a vibe, I think, but also set the expectation, which is a tricky balance.
Big time. And it's really hard because you don't want to be that boss that just shits on everybody all the time and hit the target, or whatever, numerically from a business sense. You want to have a good work culture and work environment. However, you have to run a business, and there is an obligation as a director, almost legally, to do so. We don't have the pressure of shareholders and all that sort of stuff at in the terms of the size that we are, but there is an obligation numerically that you got to hit, because you want to keep the lights on, you want to keep the place open, and so turning around, and I think in our lessons and over the years, the mistakes we've made, and then I think the improvements we've made is we've been too nice and not objectively said, these are the targets, these are the expectations, hit them, and then held our team accountable to that, brought them up with us to get there. And then other times we have, and I guess that's a big lesson, but currently, in our state, and 10 years later, for me, it's a really big one to go, here's what we need and here's why. And it's objective, it's quite clear, and I think it's quite transparent as well, and people respect that. And you set that standard, and then turning around and holding people accountable to that, staff members accountable to that, is really important and really valuable. In fact, they respect you more. And that's feedback we've had from our staff. They respect you more when the outcomes, the transparency and the expectations are super clear, and then they're held accountable to it. Super important.
And I think to support what you're saying, people want to feel like they're winning. So what's the scoreboard? What are you working to? And we can work to having a really good product, but how do you define product? You and I both believe in our product a lot, and I think we've got the best product, full stop. However, how do you define that? Is it money? Is it members? Is it quality of service? Hard to say. So yeah, I'm a big believer in scoreboards.
And yeah, and that's something that we've probably brought on in the last 2 to 3 years, is an actual objective numerical. Here's the score. Because if it's just feel, I think we ran the business off feel in the first 3 to 5 years. It just felt good and it was busy, sweet, not actually objectively knowing where everything is. And there's plenty of business owners out there, I'm sure, who, well, it's busy. And yeah, I mean, we pay the bills, and that's a bit of like, where is it at? Is it winning? Is it going down? Is it going up? What's your cash flow? All those little things that you end up having to learn, particularly if you're trying to scale the thing and get a little bit bigger. You've got to have a scoreboard. Because then it sets those expectations and it holds that accountability. But it can be lost. I think a lot of places get too hung up on those numbers. I think, if I'm going to criticize the franchise model, and there's a lot of benefits to it, and it does work from a business sense, but there is a numerical thing that they have to hit every single time, and it can affect the vibe. So it's such a fine line. It's very easy to talk about. It's very hard to actually implement and hold people accountable to.
And it still depends on what the goal of the business is. We're in a state where we've acquired a new gym. We started up a new gym in Platinum, less than 2 years ago. So we're still in the growth stage. If we were, 10 to 15 years in one singular site and it was just you and I running the thing, we might have a different mindset.
Yeah, big time. But yeah, that scalability, you need to depend on other people. You need to build a culture and environment if you want to grow something that's of significance. So, that's where we're at. Okay, rule number 3. Build a product or service that relies on a system, not an individual.
Yep. I can remember clear as day. I don't know the exact date, but I remember saying this, that I said to you, we need to be Melbourne Storm. We need to be a system that relies on, the system, frankly, where anyone can move in and out at any one time. Billy Slater goes down, they put the next one in. Cooper Cronk goes down, they put the next one in. And it's doesn't matter. Everyone shows up and does the job. That's so important to me because in fitness particularly, there's a lot of key man risk, which is basically someone is really good at their job, whether that's from a relationship perspective or technically good at their job. They leave, which happens, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and then a bunch of clients leave with them. Again, totally normal, happens all the time. I think I read a book on this or something, but I started to recognize that we were at risk of this when we had Frankie, Rory, you, me, Ash, your brother. I'm missing someone, but someone else is in there in sort of like South Brisbane phase. And I thought, okay, everyone is really good at their job. If someone leaves, we're at risk of 30, 50, 70 members going with them. We need to make sure our strength program, our conditioning program is a soft product and not just the Rory Tim show, the Kieran Maguire show. Super important.
And super hard to do. Like it's easy to say that. Because at the end of the day, when you are replacing that person, you do have to fulfill a void. And so who you're replacing it with, you might have the program done and you might have the expectations somewhat clear, but if they don't land on where they need to be. So, what little things have we put together? I can think of our internship being one. It's not a little thing, it's a pretty big thing, but that's one where they see, they learn, and then should we need to, next person steps in as, one steps out, and it's helped sort of, to a degree, system proof it. It's not 100% because interns are still graduates. They're still a little bit new, but, what are the, I guess, a couple of most key pieces that you need to implement to have a system, a la the Melbourne Storm, the Crusaders, those world-class sport teams that objectively you can see they get the results in accordance with the system, not a key man.
I always come back to whatever's in your head needs to be on paper. So if it's something as simple as program's on paper. How does a program go on paper? Well, it's got a delivery framework to it. What is the pre-warm-up? What is the warm-up? What is the main? What is the post? What is the warm-down? From a technical perspective, and then from the coaching perspective, where am I? Who am I? Where am I standing? What music am I playing? All those sorts of things. And then there's the sort of outcome of the session, which I've grown more into the last 2 or 3 years, where we're trying to clearly define what is the intended outcome of the session. Are we trying to get stronger? Are we trying to get fitter? Is this a hard session where you're just going to hurt? And then creating that mindset or realization for the session is super important because people leave feeling fulfilled relative to the desired outcome. If they show up knowing they're going to die and they die, it matches the experience.
Yeah. It's actually, it's not hard. Sorry, it's not complicated, but it's hard. It's hard to get all those little intricate details. And I'm the worst for it. I walk into a core class and I'm feeling and it's going and all those, if you put those key things that you've done so well in your brain, it's like, what do I want to achieve? Well, the focus of this session is to improve thoracic mobility. Like I want everybody in this class to learn what it is, feel, and then so they walk out feeling more accomplished. It is that simple, but putting it down on paper, writing a set of instructions and rules, it works and it is a recipe, and there is a recipe that someone can read, apply, get feedback, go again, and repeat. They'll bring their own nuance and value to it, which is incredibly, I think, beautiful in terms of the career that we're in. There's that personal flair, which is important. But at the end of the day, there's a system that still needs to be hit.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Okay, next one. Rule number 4. Make sure your product is great before you worry about marketing. And this one for me is a big one for the fitness industry particularly.
We spoke about it a few seconds ago. How do you define product? What is the intended outcome of the product? What are you trying to achieve? And how do you deem it good? What is a good product? I think for us, early days, we started in the boot camp. We were outside and it was let's run a session that is programmed. So we're not just making it up on the spot. Let's make it organized in terms of time. So there's time blocks. And let's try and have a really good feel to it, which is, your
vibe.
The vibe.
Music.
And that was probably the framework to start with. And it's developed in strength and core. And, you'll touch on that in a second. How do you define what is a good product? What is the intended outcome? How do we make it consistent. And my question to you now is, you've obviously been the key driver in creating all these products over the last, 7, 8, 9 years. What is a good product?
It's for me. From my, I guess my expectation of myself is you got to know your shit. You actually have to know what you're doing and know it down to a very finite level. If I'm talking about a handstand class, like we're reverse engineering it, it's not so that everyone can do a handstand. There's actually principles underneath that it's about the requirements to be capable to do a handstand, achieving those from wrist strength to thoracic mobility and everything in between. So, being able to define that and then communicate that and set that expectation for the client. Second to that is then the result. Like, did the client get fitter, stronger, more mobility, reduce pain, get the result that met the expectation that you set or that they wanted? Yes, cool. Well, then it's pretty clear that it's a good product. And then do they come back asking for more? Yes, cool. Clear that it's a good product. Great. Worry about that. We were in an industry that is 8-week challenge, 8-week challenge, 8-week challenge. And it seems like a lot of people in the industry are constantly reselling. And that's probably because churn's high. Probably because their product hasn't met the expectation of the client. And we've been through that. We've had moments where our product wasn't meeting a group of clients' expectations, and we've had people leave and people move on. And you have to turn around, point the finger at yourself and go, why? It's like our product wasn't meeting the expectation. What were we missing? Oh, it's probably one or two things. It might be a vibe thing. It might be an actual prescription thing that's not hard enough. It might be we haven't communicated well enough with these group of clients to say, here's the expectation we have of you when you train with us. And I'm going to ask you to get away from the stuff you're good at in strength class, and you're going to do a little bit more conditioning and a little bit more mobility, and we're going to change how you perceive health fitness training. And that's a really important one, and I think that's one that we've slipped away from and jumped back into. Back to the client. Where are you at? What do you expect? What do you need? And it's making sure we can get on the same page with that as regularly as possible, and then make sure the product matches and delivers that. And far too often in the industry, it's like, you need to train hard, you need to be shredded, you need to lose weight. That's a good product. And we're going to sell it 1,000 times over. And just go on your phone. You'll see it. That's being sold to you right now, no matter who's listening to this. Yeah, so it's pretty funny, the marketing in our industry is excellent, the service and the product, and this is harsh to say, it's not where it needs to be. And I think we wouldn't have an epidemic of, all-cause mortality related to lack of physical activity, related to, obesity, related to just general health, if we had an industry that was better at fulfilling its product and meeting its expectations.
Yep, agreed, fully.
Which then brings us to point number 5. Once your product is great, market the shit out of it. And this is something that I think the lesson we've learnt more recently, we haven't done enough of.
I think we both felt a point maybe 2 or 3 years ago where we were just starting to feel really confident in the product. And not just good, confident. Like, we run a good show. Our product is really good. We've had ebbs and flows, of course, but I think there was a realization where we need more people to know how good we are, very simply. If I can speak to the last, what are we now, 7th or 8th? What's today? The 8th?
7th.
Okay, so the last 40 days where we've gone super aggressive in our marketing.
But by our standard. Not by marketing industry standard, but by our standards.
Sorry, yeah, by 2 owner, gym, standard, whatever. We've had 31 people inquire for the gym this week. Over the last 40 days, there's been upwards of 140 odd inquiries organically.
Yeah. And define that.
Referral.
Yeah. Do a consultation. I want to come check the gym out. Here's my email. Here's my mobile. I want to do a free trial.
Basically, yeah. Whether it's from referral, Instagram, website, phone call, walk by, whatever. Maybe one person came through paid, which we ran for a few days. So, surplus of 100 people organically. And I sort of touched on this in the newsletter. Sure, it's January, and sure, February, and people come back from holidays. But that's just off the back of kicking off a marketing campaign. How else are you supposed to keep the lights on, or how else are you supposed to generate new business, or how else are you supposed to grow? And the reason we want to grow is to help more people with their desired outcome. So if you don't market, you don't get to help anyone.
And someone else is probably making that noise. So they will go to the person that they see making the noise because that in their head is what exists. For me, the funniest one is young Emily Adams, and shout out to Em. Hopefully she listens to this. She does a better job at communicating and marketing what she does as a professional than we ever have. She's got, she's just graduated. She's got probably a year and a bit's worth of experience in the industry, but is communicating it so authentically and, for lack of a better term, marketing it. She probably doesn't even know she's doing what she does, and she does it so well. Maybe there's a generational skill set there that we don't quite have with social media and whatnot, but it's incredible how valuable it is. And at the end of the day, it feels salesy, it feels marketing. We still probably feel a little bit funny about it, but we sit here and say, yeah, we believe in our product. Well, if you believe about it, you got to sell it. And I think there's this is a generalization. The highest quality practitioners in our industry probably market themselves the worst. So maybe there's actually some stuff to prove me wrong, but as an opinion piece, us as an example, we're so obsessed about the product and the quality of the product that we forget to go and actually say, hey, we've got this really good product. You should come try it. You should come and train with us. I still don't say that to people. I don't hard sell people ever. I don't even tell them what we do. How's work? Yeah, it's good. Then, I'll brush it away. So you can't grow. You can't sustain a business. You got to put your business hat on if you don't get in front of people and say, here's a really great product that can solve your problem. Let us know when you're ready.
Yeah. Language plays a big part in that too.
Big time, yeah. So, and challenging yourself. And, if you're out there running a service-based small business or you're trying to grow anything, you've got to challenge yourself to do it. Sitting and writing a weekly EDM is really freaking hard sometimes. Sometimes it's like that. But if you do it regularly, I've written blogs. I wrote blogs for 2 years straight and then wrote an email probably for 2 years and then went away from it for 6 months and we saw a downturn in the general awareness, general inquiries. And it's like, it is that simple. Assign 60 minutes, no distractions, write what you are doing, what you're selling, whatever belief that you have that is associated with your product or your service, write it and challenge yourself because that makes you better at communicating. It gives you better language and ultimately it gives people an awareness of what you're selling and how you can help them.
One last thought on that. This is specific to fitness, which is all I know, to be clear. Oftentimes, the trainer is the product.
Yeah.
And it's a combination of how you look, whether you like it or not, how fit you are, whether you like it or not, and all the other things associated with that. So when I put up a post that says, I train this many times a week, I feel like a bit of a goober. But it generates a lot of conversation between my clients, and I'm sure they talk to their partners about it and all their friends and say, oh, my trainer did this and this and this. And that's a touch point. And what does a touch point turn into? A conversation. And a conversation turns into maybe a bit of interest. Interest eventually turns into maybe an inquiry, and so it goes. So yes, I feel like a weirdo posting it, but
Do it.
I want to help more people.
Yeah. You believe in the product. Okay, cool. Rolling it on. Number 6, in health, people are holding you accountable to hold them accountable. Tell them what they need to hear, even if it's not so nice to hear.
Time on. Okay. Of all the clients I've seen and trained over the last 10 plus years, I would say there's a small subsection, and by small, I mean under 5% of people who you can write a program for, give it to them, and trust they're going to do it to the letter of the law. The other 95% probably need a phone call, a text message, a hand being held, or whatever else. If I were to guess, I would say you could spend 90% of your time checking in with people and 10% of your time writing programs. If I had to put a stat to it. The accountability is everything.
Yeah.
The initial program solves the initial problem. Once that trust is there, it's all about the accountability, the friendship, everything else.
Doing the damn thing. We keep saying it. It doesn't matter how great the program is. It could be pretty simple, but you'll get an awesome result if you just do it as is prescribed. And most people don't. And it's funny because one of our probably most valuable, high value clients turns around and says it to me. when he's walking out after a 5 a.m. session. Mate, thanks for holding me accountable. See you Friday. Make sure I'm there. And I'm like, I feel like, oh, I've got a responsibility to hold him responsible. This is a weird dynamic, power dynamic thing. He's like telling me to tell him to adhere to the thing that he's paid for. But that's what it is, you know, and if I didn't, and if he missed, and then he missed another, and 3 months in, he hasn't got the result that he wanted, he's going to go, oh, mate, like it's just not working out. And it's an accountability piece. It's assigning that time. It's saying, well done, when it is done well. And it's saying, hey, not good enough, or hey, come on, you said. It's again, being objective to it. And that's why, you know, that initial program plan and the agreement, you ready? Great. We're locked in for 6 weeks and then holding them accountable. It's irreplaceable. And that's why people need trainers, and they need human to human. And that is the one thing that future-proofs our industry. Because a robot can remind you, but you'll go, you're just a fucking robot, I don't care. You know, and I think it's super important that when it's another human, there's so much more. And then group fitness as a business succeeds. It's why our industry has turned to group, because your mate's going. And there's a social pressure thing that is like, well, if he can do it, I'm going to do it. I don't want to be the guy that slept in, that everyone goes, oh, he slept. Like, no one wants to be that person. So it's leverage, and you end up becoming and getting better because of it. So yeah, it's incredibly valuable.
I think of this in two parts. I always come back to the trainer. Like, what would a trainer think? I think in the early stages of a trainer, you should really spend a lot of time on your book. And to define that, checking in with clients, making sure they're okay, booking in next week, writing the programs, and just being that person that's always there and available for them. And what does that drive? It drives retention. It drives like having a steady book of revenue or income, and that allows you to sort of prosper going forward. I think that's a year 1 to year 3-ish, year 4 sort of journey. And then it turns to, okay, I've got a full book of people. Now you're setting the expectation, and people almost feel bad letting you down. And I know for, you know, where you and I get this feedback a lot, is people don't want to let me down when I say we're here at this time, don't miss. And so that's another form of accountability there as well. So for the early stage trainer, I think you really got to nurture them.
It's very nurturing.
Very nurturing.
Yep.
Once you're busy.
And that's your value.
Yeah.
You don't have the knowledge, skill set, experience, but you have the capacity.
Correct. That's a really good point. You got the time. Once you get to the point where you've developed those skills, then you can level up, for lack of a better word.
And your availability, it becomes harder to have 2 hours to text message, phone call, accountability. You don't have that time because now you're, you know, so if you want to train for me, we'll get good results, but mate, like the expectation's here. And yet, don't let me down. Yeah. Don't let yourself down. My favorite one is our friend Arif, and he won't mind me sharing this story, I hope. I just remember walking into the gym one time, and he's, you know, as he's doing, big mouth, and he's strong. Like, he's one of the strongest dudes in here. What's his biggest deadlift?
I think it was 232.
Yeah, like no one's lifting that. It's double body weight. And so, but he hadn't done enough cardio, he probably didn't have the cleanest diet, held a little bit more non-functional mass, body fat than he probably wanted. And he was yapping at me, and I just said, Arif, I cannot wait for you to decide to just sort your diet out and just be ripped and super fit, because you're the strongest prick in here. And I'd love it if you were the fittest, most ripped. And he went, oh, my wife called me fat this morning too, thanks, mate. And I sort of felt kind of bad and worried about it. 6 weeks after that, he had lost 8 kgs or something crazy. He just dialed in. And I was like, shit, sometimes you've got to be a bit of a bad cop, depending on the personality. There's a degree of sensitivity, what the client needs, sure. But sometimes just an objective, come on, do it, is all someone needs. And they can then prove to themselves, prove to you. And so it goes, and a big success piece comes out of that. So, you know, that's just one of my favorites. And it's just so funny how it's going to be subjective, but you can do it, and you have to. When you're working in our industry, you've got to be the bad cop sometimes. Let's keep it rolling. Earning your stripes as a practitioner and business owner. And this probably talks to kind of what you said in your early years from the accountability piece. But from a business perspective, reverse engineer it and where we went to. Tell me how, you know, I think if you look at SOF, a lot of people look at it as this big facility, lots of members, etc. It started pretty simply and pretty humbly.
Okay, so story time in just a quick 30-second spiel. Working at a gym in the Valley, in school. So when I was 16, 17, Met Rory Maguire, so your older brother. We were friends for about 2 years. We started the boot camp when I was 18, 19. So I've been working in a gym for about 2 years, did the boot camp for about 2 years. And when I turned 19, we signed a lease for our first gym in Milton. So I'd been working for more or less 4 years, training clients, doing group fitness, doing all that sort of stuff.
And so that signing of the lease was officially soft facility 14th of February 2015.
10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Yep. So at the time, my math was if I have enough clients to pay the rent and some, then that's a good deal. So pretty stupid math, but anyway. And then for the first 3 years in Milton, more or less did every single session that I possibly could, PT, group fitness, whatever. So after about 7 years of running sessions, I would have done easy 40, 50 sessions a week. And I know people say 40, 50 sessions, like, no, like 40, 50 sessions a week would be a light week.
Yeah.
Doing everything I could to make $1. I'm a bit of a stat guy, so I always think, 50 sessions a week times 52 weeks a year times 7 years. Anyway, do the math on that. And that's where you start to really hone in on your skill set from a technical perspective, how to cue, what to say, how to set up the room, how to interact with clients. And that is the fundamental part of your job as a trainer, is to be technically sound at what you do. And then you need to layer in the extra principles of what's the environment like, what's the feel like, how are you as a communicator or a leader, and all those things. But fundamentally, you need to be able to get a client an outcome, technically, a technical part of the job, which is get them stronger, get them fitter, help them lose body fat. That's step one.
And so it goes, and from a opening business perspective, again, it's like we see practitioners come in, we see them do an internship, get an opportunity to work with us, and want to be the business operator so quickly a year or two later. And it's like, mate, there's been a lot of suffering, and it's probably something we could have communicated better, not only internally to our team and members, but just, in general to people listening to this and professionals in the industry. It was hands on the grass at 6 a.m. in winter, running and getting, bindies in your hands and all that simple stuff that this business started. And it's what gives it its authenticity to get it to where it is. And that'll never be taken away from this place. It'll never be taken away from you. That gives something a feel that is irreplaceable. It's like a stripe and a scar that you can't replace that. You can't buy that. You can't learn that. You have to do it. And that for me is why there's still a unique feel about how we operate this place, and people say it. And it's because it started in a park. It started with signing that lease in Milton and going, all right, we're just going to work it out. It'll bring us to our next lesson in a second, but you got to just do that. And it's very, very hard to just walk in, purchase, and go if you haven't done that time, be it as a practitioner, be it as a business owner. And I think where we are now, 10 years later, you realize why small business owners and even medium, big business owners have a degree of they've got a bit of a hard edge, is because you're going to struggle. It's going to be hard, probably more often than it's going to be awesome, fun, and easy. And in doing so, you're going to actually earn that stripe and have a sense of pride about how you operate, but you're not going to be pushed around, because if you allow that to happen too much, you won't survive.
Nothing. I think culturally, for you and I, there's a bit of that, obviously you being from Africa and my grandparents being from Italy. Whenever I see my granddad, he always asks me, how are clients going? What's work like? Are you working like just crazy? Like there's no, did you have a day off? And I think to myself, in the 10 years, I've missed 3 sessions because I slept in 10 years, and they're all 5 a.m.s, and I remember all 3 of them really clearly, and it just kills me to this day. But when, or if you want to decide going from being an employee to a owner operator, that is a really fun and fulfilling journey.
It's exciting.
It's exciting.
Initially.
No, it still is. I love it. But you have to understand, which unfortunately you won't understand until you do it, but you have to understand that everything is on you. That's it. If you sleep in, if you don't pay the bill.
If someone else sleeps
in, that's on you.
If the aircon breaks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it goes. Yeah, it's true. Right, yeah. Lesson number 8. work it out. You will work it out. And I want to really stay on the opening of the facilities. You opened Milton, we did South Brisbane, we did the studio in the Gabba, we then did, down the ramp here on Montague Road and West End, and we did Platinum next door, and then we did Burleigh. So we've done it a few times.
Yeah. Turnaround specialists.
Turnaround specialists. How many times did we look at it 2 weeks out and go, not going to happen? It's not going to work out.
Yeah.
Yet we worked it out.
Yeah. Work it out's a funny one. There's dollars, financially.
Yeah.
There's time. Can we get things done in this time? And then there's the effort required to do so. So if I use a really funny example, when we were building Platinum, we got the demo bill and it was 30 grand. And I said to Dad, there is zero chance that I'm paying 30 grand to do this demo. You and I are doing it ourselves.
And you work it out.
And we worked it out. So Dad and I were on top of the Platinum roof and there was an aircon vent on the roof. And if you put your foot in the wrong place, you were going through this roof. So what does Dad do? He puts his foot in the wrong spot and goes through the vent. So I'm half holding this vent. And if I let this thing go, Dad's dead, I'm dead. And the bathroom had just been done. So I was more worried about the bathroom
than your lives.
Yeah, I don't know. We spent 100 grand on the bathroom. So I was like, if we ruin this bathroom, I will let Dad die before this bathroom gets ruined. And so I'm holding this aircon vent like my life depended on me. And I'm like, Dad, you get the fuck up right now because I'm going to drop this thing. And he gets up. We pull the aircon vent off and we just kind of hugged and laughed it out and just got on with it.
Worked it out.
But that's one of those ones where, I wasn't going to pay the 30 grand to do the demo. I was like, no, we'll do it ourselves. The time it took to do the demo was far longer than what we would have done if we just paid the 30. And then the effort required was, we had to move the aircon vent ourselves, which could have been, redo the bathrooms and lose your dad.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was one example on, a Thursday morning or something.
Yeah. And it's, but it's again, it's part of the earning the stripes. It's part of the nature of kind of what makes this place what it is. The amount of times we did those late nights finishing on the Sunday going, holy shit, have we finished? Well, yeah, it's finished enough to work it out. I mean, mate, we got flooded, and the whole gym downstairs here in West End, it was gutted out. We had to rip the floor out, gurney the mats. And we were open again on the Thursday. We were underwater Monday morning. Okay, gym won't operate today, guys. Hopefully we can turn it around. Suddenly the gym was underwater. Oh, okay, well, won't open tomorrow. Oh, we'll try it for Wednesday. No, Wednesday's not going to work. See you all Thursday. Everyone was in lifting weights Thursdays, and Queensland had just been flooded.
That was 2 weeks after our birthday too.
Yeah, after our 7th
or 8th, yeah.
It was 21. So, man, it's actually been a few more years since then. Jesus. But again, you work it out. We could operate. We could charge people membership for that week and provide a service for them. And I think we've always held ourselves as best as we could accountable to that.
Well, I think as well, I want to give, a really literal example. It cost us somewhere between 50 and 70 grand, that flood, in terms of fixing everything up. And that doesn't take into consideration the loss in revenue in that time too. And so naturally they had a flood disaster thing. We put our application in and I got my cousin who has an ABN to do work for us, which he actually did. And they knocked it back because of next of kin or, like too close in family or something like that. So that's, 70 grand, we'll call it even 60 grand of out of pocket expenses for something that, we couldn't control the flood. Plus, a week of lost revenue, which is, whatever it ended up being. And we could have sat there and gone, oh man, that sucks, poor us. But, we love this business. We work it out.
Yeah.
And I think I'm most proud of those things above anything else.
Yeah, for sure. Similar point, probably more in a business sense, I think is the lesson for this one. Pressure creates diamonds. If you want to grow something, you've got to put pressure on yourself. And let's talk to that. How do we do that? And I think the Platinum opening of this place and trying to force ourselves to go to a next level as a business really put us under pressure. But I think what we've created as a product as a result is there.
Yeah, it's a good point. So when we finished at the Gabba, we wanted to keep the product going.
Which is the yoga, Pilates, the yin to the yang of the group fitness program.
Which is super important to us. We got really lucky with the timing in terms of the space next door being available. So that's one of those blessings. So we go, okay, let's take a gamble.
And punting everything we've worked to build for the last 6 years.
Correct.
On the line.
Correct. As a minimum, rent was more than double. In terms of size, there's 4 times the size and space. And as a product, we were going from, roughly $40 to $60 per week for a product to something that we deemed, somewhere in the 120 plus per week realm. So we're not only quadrupling our space, doubling our rent, we're 4xing our price. So we're creating a product that we go, I don't know if this has legs. Mm-hmm. We'd sort of been back and forth with, we think it has legs, but we don't really know. So from day one, we had the fit out, which we'd sort of budgeted at X. And then it ended up being not quite 2X, but pretty close to 2X by the time everything came in. Trade, delay, loss of revenue from not being open at a certain time and whatever. So we go, okay, well, in order to make this thing work, we need X amount of signups to start on day one. So what do? We go, okay, well, what does the rent cost? What does the fit out cost? And all that sort of stuff. Extrapolate that into a weekly sum. How many memberships is that at $120 a week?
From day dot.
And so we sat there upstairs on the whiteboard like a crazy person, emailing, calling. And I remember sitting there with Art specifically, and we got the number on day one. And there was this big moment of relief and joy and everything, because we knew we could open up a premises which was at least going to break even, factoring in, it was more than double expensive to what we had initially anticipated. So again, one of those moments you're just really proud of.
And you work it out.
Work it out.
So, it's funny. And I think since opening that, it's probably another 10 lessons in it, putting that pressure on ourselves to deliver that product. And, I think over the first year, maybe year and a half, we didn't nail the delivery of $120, $150, $170 a week product. But again, you've learned, and as a result, we've now got a product that truly matches that in value. In fact, exceeds that in value, which is what you want to be offering, particularly in a service sense. So, but if we didn't demand that of ourselves from a sales execution perspective and then from a serviceability perspective, we wouldn't know, and we probably wouldn't be there. And, hopefully in doing that, and that's why we do this podcast and why we do what we do, hopefully the industry's seen that and can latch onto it and provide those products that one, people need, to actually stack up, work as a business.
What I find interesting to that as well is, pricing. I don't want to get too much from pricing today. And I'm not saying we're the pioneers of pricing, because we're definitely not. We just learn from everyone else and try and apply it as best we can. But a lot of the pricing a couple of years ago was that sub $100 mark in terms of consultations and those sorts of things. And if you look around these days, it's so much higher than that as a minimum. And sure, you learn from each other and everything like that. But when we transitioned into Platinum, it was a really big push for us to go value, and price comes with that, rather than just playing the volume game. And that was for us, we're trying to clearly distinguish the difference between our group fitness gym and our Platinum gym. So yeah, interesting little sub point.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. And then last one, picking your business partners wisely. You've had a few, we've had a few, and it's funny, for me, the business advisors, the accountants, the lawyers that we've worked with, come across, are always like, mate, this is much more important than you. And when we were young, mate, we'll just sign a partner. We'll just go together. We'll do it. When you're young, you do. 10 years later, and particularly now, if someone comes and wants to be a partner in this business, it's like, hang on a second, slow down. And to the young business person out there that's learning, that's starting their business, is bringing a partner in, whatever it might be, we've had some lessons, both good ones, bad ones, from a business partner's perspective.
Yeah, haven't we just? Where do I sit on this? I fall somewhere between being young, dumb and naive and just fucking do it, and listening to older people say, no, do this properly. And I have one person in particular, or two people in particular, that I really listen to. Do I take their advice on? but do I listen to them? Yeah, different story. So, if I'm speaking for myself, I've learned a lot from business partners. The thing that I value most is, I used this joke the other day. It's the minerals or the content in someone and whether they have the grit or not. How do you put that on a piece of paper? I got no idea, but you can sort of just tell. If I was advising someone, younger or in a earlier stage than I would say definitely, sign the thing, get the thing done, documented formally. But then it's like, would I actually do that myself? Well, now I would, but back then I didn't. So, to come back to the feel of things, I think you need to understand two things about business partners. Do they complement you? And what are they made of? Because I'm a very task-orientated person. If I was working with another task-orientated person, it wouldn't work as well. That's why you and I work so well. You create products, you're a visionary, you understand the way things are going, and I get them done.
100%.
Very simply.
Yeah, 100%. And it's, I think there's sort of as two sides for me. One, you can't do it on your own. You will not do it on your own. It's really hard. So you do need a business partner. And I recommend people, particularly service-based, going out and you need it. But at the same time, set it up safely, set it up structured, with the proper business legal stuff, as all the old wise heads did tell us. Do it so you don't get screwed, because at the same time it can cause everything to collapse. And we've been in places, we've been in places multiple times where the entire fabric of what this is has been on the line because we haven't set up things properly from the outset and throughout in terms of partnerships and bringing people on. So, and that's that lesson learned. And I think the other part from a business partner perspective is just like staff, just like any decent relationship, put the feeling part aside. You've got to be objective. What are you enjoying? What are you not enjoying? I think one of the favorite conversations I've ever had with you, particularly when it was quite clear that it was going to be you and I as partners, when Platinum was on the line, I sat down and I said, okay, Joey, I want you to tell me what I do that gives you the shits. And I could probably tell you, I think it's this, this, and this. Is there anything else you'd add? And you were like, oh, probably two more things, this and this. Great. And then I returned serve, but it was out and it was clear. And I was like, cool, we're still two guys that want to achieve the same thing. We're on the same page, but we cleared that air. And I think, in our experience, it's probably business partners that we've had that we wish did that earlier. But they come and go and everything happens for a reason. But it's pretty great when you can have a business partnership and make it work and you want the same outcome and you do whatever it takes. Learn the 10 lessons and apply it to get there. So, it's worth doing, but save yourself a lot of headaches, a lot of hassle, set shit up properly from the outset, and then be objective and clear and have the tough conversations as often and as honestly as possible. Yeah.
I think when you come from a place of objectivity rather than feeling, if the other person can't handle it, it's their problem. It's not your problem. And that's something I'm trying to work on myself is you're not trying to be an asshole to them. Sometimes it's simply a matter of fact.
Yeah. And got to go with it. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Joey, bit of fun, mate. 10 years, 10 lessons. Here's to another 10 and 20 lessons. But being able to bottle it up and I think share this is a very important part for us. And hopefully there's someone listening to this that is on their own journey and setting up their own thing in whatever way, shape or form and can go with it. And I think, hopefully the people that are listening to this that work with us maybe get a little bit more of an insight as to what's gone on to get it to where it is. And, we always want it to be better. We always want to, go to a place that exceeds where we are. There's never a sense of satisfaction we're there. But at the same time, that's the beauty of it. That's why we do it, not for a destination. It's for the journey. So it's been a lot of fun, mate. And here's to another 10, eh?
It's been really good. And I just want to say, hopefully this comes out in time. If you're around next Saturday or this Saturday coming, so it'll be the 15th?
Yes.
February the 15th is a Saturday. We're having our 10-year workout in West End. Yeah. Check all the social platforms for the link.
Yeah. Book a ticket. We'd love to see you there. Yeah. Come and bleed some hydrogen ions and then soak it up with a coffee and then see what it's all about.
Yep.
Awesome. Thanks,
Mate,
Joey.
It's been great. Cheers.